Hello, my name's Nathan Ahmad and I'm going to take you through my advanced mortar guide. So today's guide is basically me taking you through more advanced techniques for the mortar and mortar placement. This is not a how to use guide, that's been covered numerous times by many different people. Today's guide will hopefully teach you how to be more effective with the mortars and get more kills on the game and being beneficial to your team, as well as being effective and harassing the enemy. So there's 4 key factors that you need to consider, in my opinion, when you're thinking of running mortars. And 1 is spotter, 2 is range, 3 is supplies, 4 is protection. So spotter basically is someone in your squad that can relay information back to you about the effectiveness of your mortars if you are currently in the mortar fob. You could do this yourself. It makes it a lot easier if you can. Have eyes onto the target, helps you be more effective. Range. You want to consider your placement of your mortars. Not too close to the enemy, which you're just going to get overrun and you'll spend half the time trying to take back your own mortars. But in a position where you will be able to effectively help the majority of the team over especially the middle objectives. I always try and work out where the middle objectives are going to be and then try and hold on to that area with the mortar range. Supplies is self-explanatory. If you've got a very willing squad member that can run supplies for you, even better if you've got a helicopter that can do it. It's a lot more effective if a heli can do it. It means you can deploy your assets as needed. And the final one is protection. Protection is basically allowing your mortars to fire freely without being sniped. I normally build a sort of horseshoe shape with a back line, which I'll show you later in demonstration. It gives my mortar team protection from sniper fire, possible counter RT, anything like this. You've got to, and also the sort of elements, you've got to realise where you are positioned your mortar fob. Can it be seen from a hilltop? All these factors need to be considered in your placement. So the most important part about a mortar fob is your setup. If you crack the setup, then you're pretty much free to engage the enemy at will without being bothered. So I talked about the setup of the mortar fob. As you can see here, I like to go, as I mentioned before, horseshoe shape. You can go 1 high, but I normally go 2 high. That allows me the ability to place a protective shield all the way around. But as you can see in that video there, I've built it inside a small high-walled compound, which means I didn't need to use as many sandbags. You could have put an extra one on the front just to build it up to protect them from the front. But generally I normally build that horseshoe shape with the backline sandbags. It generally gives them protection from sniper fire, rifle fire and small explosions. It's noticed also, one thing I did cover is about the placement of the mortars. I normally stack my mortars so they're next to each other as close as you possibly can. That is due to the fact that the mortar are more effective on direct targets. Say if you're trying to engage an enemy hab and you're using your mortars to engage it with, the closer they are together, the more effective they are going to be hitting a single target. Normally you can spread them out between 5-10 meters. Given that spread allows a great cover of area. If you're asking both mortars to hit the same target, obviously their aim's going to be slightly different from each other, which means you'll have a greater effect over an area, but you'll be less effective on a direct target. So I like to stick my mortars on top of each other, so when they do fire on habs, we're getting more rounds on target due to that factor. Once you've established your mortar position, you're going to want to start firing. Here's a quick section on how to be effective with that. There are 4 things that I think you need to understand when you are calling in fire missions on targets. Number 1, the mortars have a 5-meter splash zone. What that basically means is when you hit a target, there's a circle around where you're aiming that the mortar will fall on. It doesn't hit exactly in the same place every time, and there is a margin of error within 5 meters. You need to consider that, especially when you're calling in danger close fire missions on friendlies, that there is a margin of error and it is a roughly 5-meter circle around the point of aim. Elevation matters. There are certain maps in games where you will be able to place a mortar fob on a hillside or on a higher elevation than what the ground is. This can affect, especially if you're using one of the mortar calculators, the accuracy of that calculator. That's why having a spotter will really help in them situations. I find it genuinely increases the range by 50 to 100 meters in most cases. So when you are setting up a mortar fob, again, the preparation stage, just consider them options. Just think that you will need to adjust on targets. Having that spotter is going to help you with that situation. Double check your target. If you are using the mortar calculator, type the coordinates in twice. Just always double check. I've been caught out a couple of times where I've typed it in once and it's come back. I've given the grids and the mortars are not even landing anywhere near. So always double check your grids. Make sure you put them in correctly and then engage on that target. Do not fire unless you need to. This is a very important one. The amount of times I've seen fobs, mortar fobs, being engaged by enemy positions or infantry because they're just firing constantly. All that does, it's an audible sound that enemy can hear and they will come and investigate. Especially if you're doing increased damage to their team, they will come and hunt you. So to minimise the fact that they can find you, just fire when you need to. Fire only as many as you need to. And just consider that option. Do not be one of these guys that just constantly fires the mortars and ends up getting overrun by infantry after 15 minutes of establishing your base. At the end of the game, you are an asset and you can lose tickets just having your radio taken out. So please be mindful of just willy-nilly firing into the air. Make sure you're only engaging targets that you know you can destroy or do effective damage to, and then conserve your ammunition. Okay, taking all them factors into consideration, now you need to start planning your fire mission. Standard fire mission, place a move marker on the map. You understand where your mortars are in correlation to your target. So mine are in the southwest of that building, which would basically mean mortars flying in a straight direction, as they do, would land on that southwest corner. I always do a 1 degree spread from the centre point, which will be covered later in the video, and I also do a 10 metre walking barrage, which will again be covered later in. This allows me to be more effective over a greater area and also walk the mortars away from the centre point. Standard fire mission. But the principle is, if you are looking at a building that's going from west to east, for example, it's not a straightforward line from your mortar position. You need to start making calculations. So, if I was to fire a normal fire mission on that point, a mortar would land roughly in that area, and if I was to follow the same principle as I just did, it would land there, possibly for the next one. Considering the infantry would be along the top of that building, that's not very beneficial to my team. If I was to simply adjust 1 degree to the right, my mortar would fall short of the building. So what I need to do is I need to increase by 10 and walk 1 degree. That simply allows me to walk the mortars along the top of that building. Given that margin of error of 5 meters, most of the rounds would land on the top. Same principle applies if you were going from east to west. Apart from adding, you need to subtract. So you need to subtract by 10 and walk 1 degree to the west. That would, again, same principle would apply. Mortars would fall on top of that building, going from east to west, making it more effective, making more rounds land on the target, greater devastation. Quick recap on that principle then. So if you're firing on a target that is going away from your mortar position, then you want to increase by 10 and adjust by 1 degree to the right. So that's increase by 10 and adjust 1 degree to the right. That will allow you to walk a straight line from west to east. And vice versa. If the target is coming back towards your mortar position, then you want to decrease by 10 and walk to the left by 1. That will follow a straight line from east to west. Depending on where your mortar position, you can apply that principle going off the basis of where your mortar position is. So if you are firing back towards your mortar position, you need to decrease the range. If you're firing away from your mortar position at an angle, you need to increase the range. Next section is types of ammunition and effective adjustments. So there's 2 types of ammunition in the game for the mortar, and that is the HE and the smoke. Here is my guide to both them types of ammunition and what I found and tested, proven have been effective ways to fire both them in an adjustment pattern. So we'll start off with a HE. This is the HE with no adjustment, so this is your standard fire mission, good for carrying out enemy fobs or fortified positions or even possibly vehicles if you can get them to stay still. Fairly tight group, as you can see again from a different angle.
Don't forget, you've always got that level of error. Rounds landing possibly 5 metre where you put them. And here you have the HE with a 1 degree spread, so that's saying 1 degree spread from the centre point. I always do 1 degree left and 1 degree right, starting from left to right. See a better group for clearing out infantry, like I said at the bottom. Perfect for anti-infantry and compound clearing. You cover a great area. You see the third round landed pretty much on top of the second round. It just shows how much of an error there are. So this is the no adjustment, but walking it 10 degrees on your mill drift away from your mortar position. Unfortunately, the video footage is corrupted on this, but you will get the rough idea when we go through this. So you can see the second set of rounds rounded fairly closely to the first set. Again, this is good for very narrow compounds or small firing area, but I always would use that 1 degree adjustment between left and right at the centre point. And there you go from the front on. You see a fairly tight group again. Unfortunately, these are walking towards me, so I do almost die in this one, but you can see that 10 degree mill drift is perfect for the HE mortars. It covers close enough area that if there is infantry in that area, clear more of them out that way. There you go. It shows a fairly tight group with no adjustment from that degree centre point. So this is the 1 degree spread, like I said before, from the centre point, left and right. I always start left to right, but there's nothing to say you can't do it your own way.
9 rounds out.
See the rounds landed in. There you go. That 10%, or that 10 mil drift, sorry, it's just enough to cover a great area. Like I said, there's a little bit of a splash radius on the mortar when it lands. So I found out that 10 mil drift is just the perfect amount to clear out compounds or condensed areas like woods that are infantry sort of hiding. Any more than that, and the rounds land too far apart. You can see almost looks as though there is no adjustment, but that is generally because of that error, that 5 metre error of the position of the mortar. But I would always use the 1 degree spread rule. As you see, that second set was a lot better, covered a greater area. Mostly average size compounds, that would clear them out quite nicely, especially if you're doing 2 mortars. This is only 1 mortar firing, so you imagine you've got 2, so 6 rounds landing each time. You're going to cover a better area. Remember, as I said, between having your mortars closely packed. So we're onto the smoke now. So this is a 30 mil drift adjustment. I always say 30 or 20. This is the 30. You see the spread, it's fairly large. As you can see on the screen, it says a large area, but it's not ideal if your infantry are in the open because and taking fire due to that fact it is such large. So this is the 20 mil drift adjustment. This is a better one, and I'd use it more often due to the fact of the closeness of the smokes. You see, it's a much better area. The smokes last around 35 seconds, so you want to have the guys pushing as soon as that's in. And there you go. You can see now, this is a 1 degree spread, well, sorry, correction, 2 degree spread from where you can see. Gives a better coverage of area. I would always use the 2 degree spread due to the coverage of the smoke. Never go with the 1 degree spread adjustment due to the mortar HEs having a splash area, and you want to cover more area with smoke. So I would always go with the rule 2 degree adjustment left to right with the smokes, and go with the standard 20 mil drift adjustment. Gives you a better smoke bank. See, closer gaps. You want to get your infantry shoots and last smoke start landing. So the final tip I'm going to give to you is something called counter fire, or counter battery in the military terms. Indirect fire on unseen mortar position. So this is a little tip that you could utilise as a mortar squad lead. Basically, here's a very rudimental diagram of what I'm talking about here. So you've got 3 squad leaders on your team, identified by the blue dots. So there's an enemy mortar position on the map somewhere. You can't quite find it. The enemy are defending well. You can't get near it. So the way you could go about this is you could get 3 squad leaders that have to be a relatively decent distance apart from each other. Because the mortars give an audible sound, they need to listen for that sound and then draw a move marker to the edge of the map in the direction they hear that sound, as accurate as they possibly can. As that is now represented on the map by 3 lines. So In theory, these squad leaders are placed move marks in the map where all 3 lines can join, or however many squad leaders you could get to do this. In theory, that should indicate by where the point of crossing is where the enemy mortar position is. If they have accurately depicted where they can hear the sound. There may be a little bit of deviation. It wouldn't probably be as accurate as it is shown in the diagram, but you would generally get gist because most people build mortar fobs inside compounds. So it at least would give you an idea roughly where the mortars are firing from. You could stick a couple of rounds in that direction, see if it stops the fire. So that's a little tip. Again, it takes a lot of organisation and communication with the squads, but I've used it to great effect in the past, and it can be a very valuable tool to the experienced squad leader. So hopefully you've found that quite useful. I'm going to end the video with a couple of clips, short clips of me as squad leader for a mortar section. You'll see a couple of clips of me in action and see how I do it. Hopefully it's been a very beneficial video, and I hope you will enjoy it. Give me feedback, let me know how it goes, things I could have done better, or if not, it's been helpful to you, and I'll possibly knock some more of these up in the future.
Striker down, striker, enemy down. Enemy tank down.
What was the angle?
Nice, well done.
1498.
And it's 279 for the degrees. Enemy rally.
1498, 279.
Good hits, good hits.
I was only a couple of meters.
Yeah, right, that's half disabled, good hit.
6 gone.
Yeah, give it loads.
Fire everything.
Come a touch to your left, just half a touch. I think you got some. I think you got that vehicle in the end.